love, love, love. All we need is love, love, love. All we need is love, love, love. All we need is love, love. Here's the second part. You can sing that if you want to, or sing this. Love is love, is love, is love. Love is love, is love, is love. Oh, love is love, is love, is love. 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 Oh, love is love, is love, is love. Love is love. And here's the Ubi Caritas et Amor part. Ubi caritas et amor, when there's love, love is love. Ubi caritas et amor, when there's love, love, love. Now, you know all the parts, do whatever one you want. Let's all go back to the original. Love, love, love. Love, love. All we try to harmonize. Love, love. You can do it. Love. No mistakes. I mean, you can't make a mistake. That's what I meant. Without the piano. One more time with the piano. Sing out. You can say, sound beautiful, thank you.
Good morning, and welcome to the Community Church of Chapel Hill Unitarian Universalist. I'm Bill Rote, a member of the Worship Associates Ministry here at the church. Our minister is the Reverend Thom Belote. I especially want to welcome any visitors or newcomers to our church and to call your attention to the special note for you, welcome guests and newcomers, on the back side of the order of service. I would also like to welcome those of you who are attending online. Lyrics to hymns and all elements of the service may be found on the screen, and a complete order of service, including this week's announcements, is available via the link in the Sunday morning email and on the church website. Our in-person Sunday social is held immediately following the service. Please turn off or silence all cell phones during our service to maintain a worshipful experience. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you arrived at this beloved place, you are welcome here. Now, if you will, rise in body or spirit as you're able and join us in singing our opening hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit. Our call to worship. Come into this community of faith. Bring your whole self, your fearing, hoping, dreading, dreaming selves. Most of all, bring your deepest values. Come the strength to stand by your values, come what may. We live in a time where calls for mercy are viewed as offensive, inappropriate. But here we claim and proclaim that mercy does not nearly go far enough. Tolerance is not enough. Acceptance is not enough. Come into this place where we celebrate our diversity. Affirmation, wide welcome, and prolific love are what this church is about. And liberation, liberation from systems of oppression and ideologies that diminish us. Come into this faith community. Come to be reminded of who we are and that for which we stand. Come, let us worship together. If you would, please join me in reading the words for our lighting of the chalice. Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere, its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its ritual works of love, its profession of faith, divine healing.
Well, I built this house with my own two hands. I built this house with the hands of my brothers. Built this house with a firm foundation, and it won't be shaken by no storm. Oh, the wind and rain, they try to overtake us. The wind and rain, they want to bend and break us, but they're saved by a firm foundation, and it won't be shaken by no storm. I built this house on a promised land. I built this house through the tears of my mothers. Built this house, though our hearts were broken, and it won't be shaken by no storm. Oh, the floods, they come, their waters rising high, but I won't run. No, I'll stay safe and dry inside this house. It's on a firm foundation, and I won't be shaken by no storm. Well, I built this house with my own two hands. I built this house with the hands of my brothers. Built this house on a firm foundation, and it won't be shaken by no storm. No, it won't be shaken by no storm. No, it won't be shaken by no storm.
It's good to see all of you here this morning, and it's especially good to see some guests. I understand that we have a row or a row and a half of guests. Is it the middle school youth group from the UU Fellowship of Raleigh? Would you all rise as you are able and welcome. Thanks for joining us in worship today. Each week, we hold a time in our service for those profound sorrows or joys that are a part of your life. If you've come this morning with either a significant personal joy or a significant sorrow, you're invited to come forward, place a stone in the water bowl, say your name, and in like 1 to 2 sentences, share your joy or your sorrow. Let us enter into this time of tenderness and trust. Are there any joys and sorrows this morning? I see Leanne coming forward.
Hi, I'm Leanne King, and I have an important joy and a little bit of a sorrow to share. I am now one of 2, was formerly one of 4 partners in an urban planning firm, and we've had what was at many times a really tough negotiation over the last year, and I'm happy to say that we kind of completed that this week. Everyone was in good spirits, and all of us are going to dinner with each other next week, so it's good to know that people can kind of find the best in themselves to get through hard discussions.
Hey, I'm Sarah Clark Farnell. Some of y'all know that I've been on a very long path to ministry, and I have a date with the Ministerial Fellowshipping Committee for September. So that's sort of like, kind of like the last step. So for better or for worse, yeah, so please hold me in prayer.
Hi, my name's Amy Maddox, and I wanted to share the joy that my family and I went to the International Civil Rights Museum in Greensboro yesterday, and I thought that was a really profound way that we can, as the 4 of us, find our different ways through this hard time, that we have a bit of a shared vocabulary about some of our important principles.
A final stone is placed this morning for all the joys and the sorrows that we hold in our hearts, which were not shared. Yesterday, we held as a board retreat, and our new board president, Don Carter, selected a prayer for closing words, and I immediately thought, well, that is so good. I want to share it with the whole congregation. So Dawn was generous enough to actually give me the page that she had read from, and I share it with you now. These are words by a Unitarian Universalist minister, Reverend Douglas Taylor, and it is a prayer for resilience. I invite you into the spirit of prayer and meditation. Gracious and loving God, from whom all things come and to whom all things return, we gather on the edge of another week, and for some of us, on the edge of our strength. We come buoyed by events of our week or weighed down by them, or we arrive in some paradoxical mix thereof. We are here in our Sunday assembly of hope and restoration. At times we come weary and worn down, and for some that is how we arrive today. At other times, we come with questions, with a longing, or with something to offer. But for those who come today shattered, broken, lonely, and lost, let us offer our prayer of resilience. Again, this week, we test the tender places in our hearts and in our lives to see what healing may occur. Gratitude is often a source of healing. we give thanks for the landscapes of grace in our lives, for music and good companions, for the guidance of great principles, and the examples of integrity around us. We give thanks for all that lifts us up, and for lessons that lead us on. For the times when we are brought low by anxiety or adversity, show us the hidden wells of love we can tap into. Help us rise up once more, just once more, and once more again will surely be enough. Remind us that we do not strive in vain, that we are part of a chorus, that resilience is in our bones, and that healing and grace come like soft rain. Be thou an ever-present strength upon our journeys, and teach us that in falling down we do rise again. This we ask in the name of all that is holy. May it be so. And may these prayers mingle with the prayers of our own hearts as we hold a time of silence together. Amen. I invite you to turn to number 1031 in your hymnal. It is filled with loving kindness, and it kind of repeats, but the first time we sing, may I be filled with loving kindness, the second time, may you be filled, and the third time, may we. Let us sing together.
This morning's responsive reading is number 592 in the Gray Hymnal. It's by the minister William Ellery Channing, and it's called The Free Mind. I will read the first section, and then if you will read the section in italics. I call that mind free which masters the senses and which recognizes its own reality and greatness. I call that mind free which jealously guards its intellectual rights and powers, which does not content itself with a passive or hereditary faith. Which opens itself to light whensoever it may come, which receives new truth as an angel from heaven. I call that mind free which is not passively framed by outward circumstances, and is not the creature of accidental impulse. Which discovers everywhere the radiant signatures of the infinite Spirit, and in them finds help to its own spiritual enlargement. I call that mind free which protects itself against usurpations of society, and which does not cower to human opinion. Which refuses to be the slave or tool of the many or of the few, and guards its empire over itself as nobler than the empire of the world. I call that mind free which resists the bondage of habit, which does not mechanically copy the past, nor live on its old virtues. I call that mind free which sets no bounds to its love, which wherever they are seen, delights in virtue and sympathizes with suffering. Which recognizes in all human beings the image of God and the rights of God's children, and offers itself up a willing sacrifice to the cause of humankind. I call that mind free which has cast off all fear but that of wrongdoing, and which no menace or peril can enthrall. Which is calm in the midst of tumults, and possesses itself above all else to be lost.
Freely have we received gifts that minister to our needs of body and spirit. Gladly we bring to our church and its wide concerns a portion of this bounty. If you wish to donate online, there's a QR code on the back of the order of service, and there is information on the church's website. We will now receive the morning offering.
Before the choir sings this morning, I wanted to say just a few words about the author of the piece they're about to sing, or at least the words that came to this piece. The service this morning is really framed around three sort of core classic Unitarian and Universalist readings. We had Theodore Parker, Jen just did some William Ellery Channing, and this piece is the words of John Murray. John Murray was a Universalist minister who was persecuted in England for preaching Universalism, set sail for the United States, and on his way over, the first ever Universalist miracle occurred, which is that his boat washed up on a sandbar outside of New Jersey, and he went ashore, and there he found a chapel that had been built. And the owner of that chapel had said, "Alas, I built this chapel in the hopes that a great preacher would come." And John Murray said, "Don't get your hopes up, because the tides are going to shift and the boat is going to get freed by the sandbar." But the chapel owner said, "But if you are still here come Sunday, you will preach." And John Murray agreed, and the tides did not free the boat, and the first Universalist sermon was preached in America. Give them not hell, but hope. In Unitarian Universalism, like many other denominations, people who are preparing for ministry are required to complete a unit of clinical pastoral education. Jen did this. Sarah, Clark Farnell did this. Others who've come up from our church into ministry have done this. And I, too, did it when I was 23 years old. Clinical pastoral education, or CPE for short, is usually done in a hospital, and it involves visiting and offering spiritual care to patients and families, and then processing your experience with a group of peers. It's wild. There's really no training per se. They give you a floor on the hospital and tell you to go visit every room and then come back and talk about how it went. They also have you take on overnight shifts because I guess sleep deprivation is a necessary art for ministry. I don't know. And for me, during those overnight shifts, I was the lone chaplain on call for a 900-bed hospital and level 1 trauma center. Like I say, it was wild and intense. Every minister I know can recall dozens and dozens of CPE stories. They are vivid. They never leave you. Like this one. One night, I was working an overnight shift at the hospital when I got a page to go to the emergency room, stat. I got there and found the doctor who had me paged. A patient had died. The family had arrived and had been told to wait in the private waiting room. We were going to break the news to them. We walked into the room, and I learned very quickly that this doctor had the worst bedside manner of any doctor in the history of medicine. The doctor spoke a total of 8 words to the family. First name, last name is dead. Here is the chaplain. And then turned and ran out of the room. The story came back to me this week like a flashback. I think I recalled this story this week because in talking with so many of you, you've told me how much you feel like that patient in the waiting room, like a patient in the waiting room, and the doctor has just come in and given a devastating diagnosis. I'm sorry to tell you that the sickness has spread. And let us make no mistake. Let us make no mistake. There is a sickness in our country right now. Racism is a sickness. Xenophobia is a sickness. Christian nationalism is a sickness. Homophobia and transphobia are a sickness. And they are a lethal sickness. They will kill. They will kill gay and lesbian and queer and trans youth. They will kill immigrants. They will separate children from their families. They will hurt women. They will hurt those who are sick. There is a sickness in our country. For a time, we may have thought the symptoms were diminishing. For a time, we may have held out hope for remission, but we've been given the diagnosis. The disease has spread. It is not surprising news. Like that family told to wait in the private room, we knew the news wasn't going to be good. But now we've seen the scans and seen the x-rays. That's metastasized. And here's the chaplain. Here's the tragic news, and here's the chaplain. I guess that's my job now. I suppose what I want to do with you this morning is to reflect a little bit about how I've tried to navigate my own feelings, my own life, my own spiritual life, amidst challenging times. 8 years ago, in January of 2017, I sought to make meaning of those days by reading about those who had lived and suffered under and were experts on authoritarian regimes. My reading list that winter included Hannah Arendt, the political philosopher who studied totalitarianism. My reading list included Dietrich Bonhoeffer, the leader of the Confessing Church in Germany who resisted the Nazis. I read Elie Wiesel and Viktor Frankl. I read Timothy Snyder's On Tyranny several times. And I read the writings of the leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement, writing about resistance and resilience amidst systems of oppression. I approached it in 2017 by trying to learn everything that I could about political repression and how to practice resistance. This fall, if you've been coming to worship, as if preparing for the possibility of a devastating diagnosis, my reading and study went in a somewhat different direction. I began to reread many of the classics of liberal religious thought. I reread and preached from Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams and Christian theologians like Reinhold Niebuhr and Paul Tillich. And now, looking back at what I read and preached this fall, I think that what I was trying to do instinctively, protectively, was to ground myself in the core of my being, to my core identity and my core commitments. Who am I? Whose am I? What are my non-negotiable enduring values and commitments? To what do I pledge my life? When the foundations shake, when the winds howl, when the doctor comes and gives us the bad news, it is important to know who we are and whose we are and which enduring values hold claim over us. So what I want to do is to provide the briefest of introductions to liberal religion. I do this in the hopes that it might help you to feel grounded in dangerous and unsteady times. The word liberal comes from the Latin, and the root of the word is the Latin liber, and liber referred first to a specific part of a tree, namely the inner bark. Our biologist here is smiling. Thanks for smiling, Amy. In biology, this part of the tree is known as the cambium. The cambium, the liber, is what allows a tree to grow. It's actually a thin layer of cells, small but mighty, which allows a tiny sapling to become a mighty oak. It is where all of the growth comes from. Liber, from which we get the word liberal, is like that inner bark of the tree. It's the part that grows. Interestingly, liber is also the Latin word for book. Spanish libro, French livre. We also find this root in the English word library. So it's kind of interesting that the Latin word for book literally means living, growing wood, which is true and also paradoxical and kind of cool. And the word liberal, from the Latin liber, grew to have other meanings as well. In Latin, liber is translated as free, and it is translated as generous. Free and generous. Liber means free. It's from where we get the word liberty, liberation. So liberal religion is free religion. And at the core of that freedom is the freedom of thought. What William Ellery Channing in our reading 200 years ago called the free mind. In free religion, we have not just the right, but the obligation of passing our lives through the fire of thought, as Emerson put it. Put simply, it means that we have the right to disagree to disagree with creeds, to challenge religious authorities, to challenge secular authorities, to interpret texts for ourselves, to search openly and freely for the truth. Central to the practice of liberal religion is the freedom of the pulpit and the freedom of the pew. Freedom of the pulpit means that you've loaned me this pulpit with the expectation that I will tell you the truth as best I know it according to my conscience. My contract with the church actually demands that. My contract with the church puts it this way, quote, "The minister shall enjoy a free pulpit in accordance with the tradition of Unitarian Universalism. The minister is expected to express values, views, and commitment without fear or favor," end quote. Which is to say, there is no higher authority telling me what I can and cannot say, and there is no gang in the church placing limits on what I'm allowed to talk about. And the corollary to the freedom of the pulpit is the freedom of the pew, which you all enjoy. The freedom of the pew means simply that you're allowed to disagree. You don't have to agree with what I say. You're allowed to question. You're allowed to disagree. You don't have to take what I say at face value. Pass it through the fire of your own thought and come to your own conclusions. And from this freedom, this core freedom, flows all of the other freedoms that we cherish. Intellectual freedom, academic freedom, freedom of expression, bodily autonomy, freedom to love, freedom to marry, freedom from want, freedom from fear, political freedom, democratic freedom. And we know that coercion, corruption, threats of violence, secrecy, propaganda, and lies are all the enemies of freedom. Liberal religion means free religion. And liberal religion also means generous religion. Part of the liberal mindset is seeing the world as wondrous, exuberant, and lavish. It is delight in the world's diversity and the diversity of human beings. We do not merely tolerate difference, we celebrate different religions, different languages, different cultures, different ethnicities, sexual orientations, genders, of which there are far more than two. The metaphors that we use to describe our faith express this generosity. Like a lot of congregations, we have a quilt. A lot of congregations have a chalice quilt, and that quilt, a lot of different patterns. Some of them that may not go well together, all together somehow becoming way more beautiful. Not this morning, but a lot of mornings we have a bouquet up here, a lot of different flowers all together being more beautiful. A mosaic, many small pieces arranged beautifully, a spectrum, many colors of the rainbow. Our images, quilts and bouquets and mosaics and spectrums are images of this generous view of the world, this liberal view. This morning's service has been based around core expressions of liberal religion from John Murray and Theodore Parker and William Ellery Channing. Why am I preaching this today? It's been noted by those who've written about surviving under repressive regimes that one of the most important things that you can do is to define and claim yourself, to define and claim yourself. One author actually recommends taking a moment to write down, literally write down your deepest values, your loftiest commitments, who you are, whose you are, your moral code, and even what you would be unwilling to do, because to do that would violate your own sense of humanity. And then to keep what you've written close at hand, and never to violate or forsake your highest commandments. I started my remarks this morning with an unforgettable story from hospital chaplaincy. This past week, and I know for many of us, I can identify with that family that has just received a brutal diagnosis. I can identify, maybe others of you as leaders or as parents can identify with that chaplain, trying to find a good word to say in the moment. But what about that doctor? Can we put ourselves there as well? Now, from the way I told the story, we might all conclude that that doctor was just a bad doctor, lacking in compassion and empathy and kindness. And that's one interpretation. I want to share another one. This hospital where I served as a chaplain was a county hospital. It served the indigent population of the city, the poorest of the poor, in a city full of skyscrapers and wealth. That emergency room saw tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. And I wonder how that was for the doctor, having to witness death and disease, and often, since it was serving poor folks, preventable, unnecessary, and senseless disease, preventable disease, unnecessary death, senseless death. I wonder if this doctor had suffered moral injury from serving in this context. I wonder if this doctor was not a bad person, but had simply grown cold and harsh in a cold and harsh and brutal environment. There's a lesson to be learned from that doctor, which is that in times of stress, we can be tempted to lash out, to grow cold, to do harm. May we all do our best not to do that. It is hard to hold kindness and compassion, even in the midst of stress and anxiety. I leave you this morning to ask these questions, to put these questions through the fire of your own thought. Who are you? Whose are you? What are your deepest moral convictions that you would hold no matter what? May we go forth with a free mind, which, like Channing said, sets no bounds to its love, which wherever they are seen, delights in virtue and sympathizes with suffering. May we recognize in all human beings the image of God and the rights of God's children. May we proclaim the good news to all humankind. Amen, and blessed be. And our closing hymn this morning is number 287, Faith of the Larger Liberty. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit as we sing together.
Now, if you would please join me in reading the words for extinguishing our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of service. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And before we sing our closing song, let's give thanks to everybody who made this service. Now, as you're comfortable, if you would either join hands with those next to you or cross your hands over your heart, and let's sing our closing song, Shalom.